But it's just too nice a day to sit inside and do a reading, so I thought might as well sit outside and do this one. So sorry, I'm not trying to have like my neighbor's house in the, you know what I mean, in the shot, because it's, anyway. We know how some of that neighborly action goes anyway. Did you guys ever see that episode of Roseanne when they get the new neighbors or whatever, and like Darlene's little brother is staring at the neighbor girl through the window, and Darlene's like mad. She's like, can't you close your curtain? She's like, oh, well, we grew up around where we didn't have to do that. Which, I'll say it doesn't really matter where you are. There might be somebody trying to. Which I used to say, like, are they that hard up? Like they ain't got, that they gotta try and creep on me. Like really? Okay, but anyway, it's not like I didn't just graduate from college. You know what I mean? Some people are at my age, and that's fine. You do you. But, traditionally speaking, I'm just saying. Anyway. You can hear the dogs bark. It's like they're talking to each other. Like, hey, what's up? Hey, hey, hey. Where's the party at tomorrow? Hey, hey. The party is today. Estoy aquí, right here, right now, because it's a beautiful day. And we're supposed to get more rain tomorrow, and it's like I thought, yeah, I'm just gonna take advantage of the day. You know what I mean? Because tomorrow I will have likely plenty of time. Keep your paws down. I will likely have plenty of time to work on indoor projects. Oh my goodness, he's got the zoomies now. Anyway, no wonder there's a weird spot in my grass out here, right? The Knight of Pentacles, the slowest knight in the deck, but still with the pentacle. You know what I mean? So yeah, maybe you don't have all your eggs in one basket. Maybe it's one egg in one basket so far, but you're like, but I got one. So this might be having to do with a nest egg or something as well for somebody. So, maybe you're somebody who, you do that yourself, or invest your monies yourself. Like, some people are like, oh, I got a guy, you know what I mean? Well, some people don't have a guy, you know what I mean? Some people just do it themselves. And, and even there's, because I've, especially when I was working at my corporate gig, I talked to, a professional once, and they're like, oh, well, our portfolio started at such and such, and I was like, oh my god. It's like I'm sitting there thinking, I'll be lucky if I even ever save that much money to begin with, right? So you know what I'm saying, like not everything is for everybody, right? Okay, sorry. Oh yeah, it's the playlist. I typed in Street Fighting Man by the Rolling Stones, and then it brought up a playlist on, I think it's the Spotify service that it has the 50 million. Hey, I'm trying to do something here. Oh my god. Anyway, yeah, these barking dogs. Who needs a Street Fighting Man when you got a couple barking dogs in the background, right? Anyway, I'm treating today like my Friday, okay? Or like a typical Friday. Yeah, magician. So you might be changing some things up. You might be, or like remember when you were a little kid, maybe one of your parents or somebody was like, oh, here I am. I'll do this, and this, and now we have a party. You know what I mean? It's kind of funny when I was getting my hair done earlier today, somebody was talking about that they were still recovering from one of the kids' birthday parties that they had to throw, you know what I mean? Because sometimes, when you're managing all the people and, if you're on a time frame and all that kind of stuff. But, this is like due diligence here. So It's like, and you know, you might be like, well, look, I don't have a lot of money to spend, blah, 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 but you're still gonna like do what you can, do your due diligence, right? You know, instead of buying a cake or cupcakes, maybe you're making that stuff. You know what I mean? Like all of those kinds of things. All right, yeah. So let's keep going. Because the Eight of Pentacles too, it's like it's not finished. And there's still, it's like when you're watching Wheel of Fortune sometimes, right? And it's like, how does this fit with that? Does it, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, you just kind of like get it. That's kind of how the Eight of Pentacles is, where you might not see it, you might understand where it's going, but you know, it's not always visible, right? Especially to say outsiders or the external world, or maybe somebody who doesn't understand what you're working on, right? Okay. Ooh, Emperor. Aries energy. I believe we're in Aries season, so you know, we already had that spring equinox and stuff. Big bad Emperor vibes, yeah. So yeah, this could be, oh look, Four of Wands on the bottom. This could be an Emperor as well. With this project where it's like, you know, is an Emperor going to be happy with Eight of Pentacles, or no, they're going to keep working until they get to the 10. Right? And look, there's 10 people watching. No, I just jumped up to 13, but there's 10 right there. Interesting. Seven of Cups. Yeah, so you do have options. You have choices of how things are going to turn out, right? But if you give it some time and patience, yeah, Sagittarius as well. If you give it some time and patience. So Sagittarius is also, it's known for like head in the cloud, but it's like, that's, you're shooting for the vision, right? While your feet are on the earth, trying to make it happen, right? Okay. So looks like you have a lot of options, especially in terms of how things are going to turn out. There might be something with this upcoming full moon that occurs as well. Okay. So, and some people think this is intimidating, but you know, if you're used to making good choices for yourself, you know you're going to pick the right thing for you. You know what I mean? And it may not be for everybody. You know what I mean? Some people are, you know, like, oh, let's wait in line for the jump scare ride. You know what I mean? And other people are like, I'd rather go and do this one. You know what I mean? So just because you try something doesn't mean that you're stuck with it, is what I want to say. Okay, I did. There's like it's like a hospital service that is not far. So sometimes I hear ambulances from where I'm at. Anyway, I'm glad I'm done running errands right now, so I'm out of the way. It still surprises me how many people do not even remotely pull over to let emergency vehicles go by. You know what I mean? And I know sometimes it's hard to come to that complete stop, but you know what I mean? If people that can at least start to merge off to the, you know, especially when they got their sirens going and everything, and it's like, okay. But, you know, sometimes we're distracted by other things, right? But hopefully it's, you know, good things. It's going to bring us that happiness that we're looking for. Okay. Yeah. And you might want to be wary of, of like fake offers, that kind of, you know, like it looks like a cheap thrill, but, you know, leads into the temptation of, now I have to go heal myself 50 million times if I ever get out of it to begin with. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah, look at that. So there's an Empress right here. Okay, so with this Empress, this is more about like celebrating how far you've come and, you know, giving yourself your props. Like when I was getting my hair done, I was kind of briefly explaining to her the one place I used to get my my hair done at. And then, one of my exes moved to that town, and then I was starting to get like panic attacks when I was driving over there. And it's like she wasn't a bad hairdresser, but I just also, it wasn't my comfort zone anymore, like by far. And it's like I had to make that change, right? And that doesn't mean to tear anybody else down. Sometimes it's just what you need to do for the situation, right? So, and if you're like me, collective, you don't arrive at decisions like flippantly. And that might be part of this Knight of Pentacles where it's like, okay, like I have this seed to plant, but I don't want to screw it up, right? So what do people do? They just hang on to that seed. They never plant it. And it's like, well, hey. Anyway, so I was kind of explaining to her, and she's like, well, yeah, you don't want to feel on edge when you're going to get pampered. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, you want that to be an enjoyable experience. So, sometimes planting that seed in the right place, right? But this might be one of those things where, okay, you tried it here and it didn't work well, you're going to have another opportunity in another couple weeks or something, where it's one of those things where it's not like you just completely lose it. Do you know what I'm saying? Because I understand that's why people never even try to do certain things, right? Because it's like, oh, well, what if something goes wrong? Well, let me tell you, something's probably going to go wrong. It's just a matter of how you handle it in the long run. What's that song by the Eagles? In the long run. It's so fun. Okay, I'm not sure if that's Joe Walsh's solo or what, but anyway, Two of Cups. You might be running into somebody this weekend, maybe. You have a little love connection. Ooh, some of you are like, please, yes, because you wish death to the other one. Queen of Swords. Lumi's like, yeah, that's divorce me talking. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, some of you have been getting your rest, potentially, since you're not dealing with so-and-so anymore, right? What does so-and-so think? What does so-and-so want to do? Right? Hey, pipe it down. Anyway, yeah, so you might have a new ride coming to pick you up. Somebody wants you to treat you as... Hey! Somebody that wants to treat you with, kind of the respect and, like, maybe give you a compliment every now and then. Do you know what I mean? Hey! Stop it! Stop! Knock it off. Oh my God, what is it with you two? Anyway, like in that movie, As Good as It Gets, right? When she's like going out with Jack Nicholson's character, Helen Hunt, and she's like, I need a compliment. Like you can try to be nice to me. You know what I mean? Like this person is the one that will like, oh yeah, hey, good looking, like, come on, let's go. Where you been all my life? You know what I mean? But like not in a trying to be like, manipulative kind of way. It's, because they understand that you like, are not falling for no second rate, third rate, somebody that thinks they're fifth rate that's like never getting close, That's why I ran into this dude at the liquor store the other day. It's one of the nicer liquor stores, right? Anyway, well, they have everything in there, and they have this one particular wine that I was looking for. But I was walking by and I saw the title of one of the wines is Jezebel, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen it's like one of the 1939 movies that was nominated, I believe, and what Bette Davis was nominated for an Oscar against Vivien Leigh, who ended up winning that year. There's a movie called Jezebel as well, but I joked with the guy, by a social acquaintance. Well, I've seen him there, many times working. Anyway, And I was like, oh, haha, it has my name on it, you know. I was like, just ask anybody. And he kind of just like was, you know, wasn't sure if I was being serious or not. And I kind of said, I was like, well, you know, the ones that never got any. You know, because it's always the ones that, you know, claim to have the most experience to have zero. Especially when it comes to your business, right? Whether that be your intimate partnerships, your work life, like how well you do at your job, or you know, like your how you keep your house, or yeah, I mean, like anything. You know, how you raise your kids, or be people like, oh, well, you know what they do, and blah blah blah, and this and that, and it's like, oh, is that a fact? And that makes me what? Because do you know what I mean? It's like, what, just because your kids don't, or your family does, or what, you know, whatever. Like, you know, so kind of reminds me of the James Bonds. I was what was that one? Live and Let Die. But you know, how about Live and Let Live? You know what I mean? Like, just let people go on and live their lives. You know, they're not hurting you. So. You know what I mean? Change the channel, especially like the people that come on to, you know, other people's YouTube channels, you know, and I only stream on YouTube. I tried on Facebook a little bit, but I didn't really care for the latency that the video showed. Anyway, so anytime I'm streaming, especially doing a reading, it's via YouTube. Although there's like maybe one or two I did on TikTok. I just don't have time to be on all the apps. I got other things to do. You know what I mean? And some people don't. So they think that you're supposed to, you know, and it's like, well, you know, I guess if somebody cloned me, maybe that'd be possible. They did make a movie about that, though, starring Michael Keaton, and some of it doesn't turn out so great. You know, some of it does. Hey! All right. Anyway, yeah, not even 20 minutes in, and these dogs are like, meow. So, greetings from the Czech Republic. Hello to you, our friends in Europe. It would probably likely be mid-evening there. You know, I'm not sure in the Czech Republic what, okay, Ura. I'm sure you speak, most Europeans speak multiple languages, but at what time, do you guys commence with dinner, you know, in your region? Typically, I know when I was overseas, and you know, it's not uncommon to have dinner at, you know, 8-9 o'clock. You know what I mean? And people sit and socialize and have some wine and, you know, those sorts of things. But also, you know, the more northern Europe you are, the longer daylight hours you have. So, you know, you're looking outside and it's like still looks like broad daylight at 9 p.m. Whereas, you know, if you're somewhere else, you're getting tucked into bed, you know, the late news is already, you know, the early late news already comes on at 9 p.m. So, you know, it's all about perspective, right? So I'll have to look that up. What's customary there, over on the more eastern side of Europe. So, but definitely over in Spain they do the late dinners. But they also have the tapas bars, which is nice. Alrighty. Well, better they're getting it out now outside, right? Versus taking it out on me inside the house. I think he's just waiting for one of these squirrels to fall off these phone poles or whatever the heck's going on, you know, whatever these things are. Just waiting for one of these squirrels to drop down into the yard so he can make short work chasing him around a little bit, maybe even. I don't know if he'd attack him right away. You know, this one, my newer dog, he doesn't tear stuff up. His toys, he'll tear other things up. you know. But he hasn't, maybe but one pulled the squeaker out. Only one toy since he's been here. So, but he's a rescue too. So you don't know what their background is. If they were punished for doing that somewhere else, so maybe that's why he don't do that. You know what I mean? I don't know. But my other dog, she didn't have a problem ripping some of these things to shreds. She was like, let me at them, right? But she doesn't do it as much anymore. But, she has fun watching him run around. Anyway, where am I from? I am from the Midwest. But I do have some, multiple places, European ancestry. So I've always taken an interest in that part of the world, and I was able to travel a few times to Europe, once during school, and then some while I was working my corporate job. Yes, USA, not far from Chicago, if you need a reference point. But in Europe, I mean, from where I'm at to Chicago, you could be crossing countries, because it takes at least, it used to be not so bad with the traffic. These days, you got to plan from where I'm at right now, at least 3.5 hours. I would plan, if you're going to get at least like parking lot to parking lot type thing, because there's just so much logistics traffic, commuter traffic, so personal and commercial vehicles on the road these days. And they've made the highways bigger, but I don't know, it just seems like it's still, and there's shipping hubs and stuff up there too, and there's airline hubs up there, and so it's not, people think the Midwest, there's not a whole lot going on, but, I'd tell you what, if you're out there on that interstate, man, you better be paying attention. You better be paying attention, because somebody will come up on your corner going 95 miles an hour over your little 75 ass, even though the sign only says 60 or 55. Okay, so just because you put your little turn signal on didn't mean they're going to pay attention to what you're doing, and then all of a sudden, what I mean? It's kind of like that up there. So, I don't know if it's bad as Nashville. Sorry, Tennesseans. I'm just saying that is a little death trap around there with them semis coming in and out. Yeah, I did not enjoy that. Well, I wasn't driving then either. I was on a work trip and somebody else was driving, and I just, because I normally drive, I didn't really care for that so much. But like Australia, when we were down in Australia, I didn't have an issue with that, somebody else driving. But, a lot, I feel like the Aussies have a lot of common sense. Do you know what I'm saying? And, what was there in that country before it got developed? So, you know what I mean? They already had the old world to kind of compare it to, kind of like the USA did. It's like, not every, city center is the center. You know what I mean? With all roads pointing out, like in Paris. You know what I mean? Like, we're more on like a grid system here. Whereas like Chicago, they're on a grid system a little bit, but they can only do so much because the lake's there. But that's one thing that's great about Chicago is, if you head east, you're going to hit that water. And if you never hit that water, then you're probably already in another state on the way to one of the other Great Lakes. Have a nice vacation. You know what I mean? Oh, you have a Tesla? That's nice. You know what is really interesting? It's funny you mentioned that. When I was going to get my hair done earlier, there was a Tesla that took off through the light, and there was a cop sitting on the other side of the road. Nobody did. I look around and it's like, I guess, like there was no cross traffic coming, maybe he had a bathroom emergency. I don't know. But I thought, well, I'm guessing that's not one of the self-driving ones, because that would be going through a red light. You know what I mean? And, Yeah, so which they're talking about here, the Waymos. They're talking about the Waymos being the new robotaxi or whatever, which is driverless. I don't know if I trust that. I don't know. See, I'm too because I drive. You know what I mean? So, if you're somebody who's never driven before and you're used to taking public transportation and stuff, maybe it's more I don't know, familiar feeling, because we don't always see the bus driver or the train operator or those folks, but those folks are there. You know what I mean? So they're the ones pressing the brake or letting people on and off. And anyway, which I also did like down in Australia, the trams that came around, because they were very easy to get on and off, and to pay. So. But, I don't know how safe it is, like, in certain hours and stuff. You know what I mean? Right? Don't quote me on it. You always gotta check stuff out before you go, or look at current warnings and stuff like that. I miss the old days of the warning system, where we had the green, yellow, orange, and then, like, red and bright red, because I don't, and where I worked at, people would, we would get notifications, through our corporate communications of, there's a travel advisory here or there, those sorts of things. Because, some people say, this today is a White Claw beverage, 100 cal, and it only has 2 grams of carbs. So people that are sugar sensitive, you shouldn't have any issue with that. But yeah. All right, I kind of forgot where I was going on the rest of that. Anyway, this. Hey, no! Oh my gosh. Hey. Anyway, yeah, with the travel warnings, because people think they can come over to the USA and just plop anywhere and be like, oh, everything's like Disneyland. It's like, well, number one, Disneyland's expensive. Number two, the traffic around Disney's terrible. So remember that, USA can be expensive. Traffic can be terrible. Sometimes you have to have a vehicle to get around. You're not always going to have public transportation. There's all sorts of things where there's pros and cons, different places. So, I like to tell people, do your research. It's just today's kind of internet, there's a lot of instant gratification. And I think that stuff always occurred. It was just not as documented as it is today. And, people are like, oh, my disappointment living in a foreign country. Well, it's like, well, what did you think was going to happen? They're just going to change because you showed up? Like, it doesn't always work that way, right? So anyway, and that, like, they used to give us like cultural training too before we went somewhere. So you kind of knew what to expect. How sensitive are they about certain religious topics? What is their financial system like, in terms of, is it more like people that like vend or barter and do things like that? Is it, some people are like, get to right business, within the first 5 minutes. Other people, they feel offended if you don't ask about their family and right? It can vary wherever you go, right? And I think that happens in the United States as well, although I've been told I'm very direct. But, for me, it's like, well, you can either waste time or spit it out because maybe you got other things to do. Anyway, which I hear that the Czech people are more direct. So maybe that's one thing that we have in common. All right. So I'm coming up here on 30. So I hope you enjoyed today's message and reading. And until next time, manifest wisely, and hopefully my doggies won't be quite so loud. My apologies if they were a little loud during the video for you. Okay, bye.